Closed captioning of this program is brought to you by Pioneer Petroleums. Fuel your passion.
You know, the nice thing about being in a kayak, you can actually buy kayak rods, specifically designed to fish out of a kayak. And I'm holding one of them up here. It's made by North Coast. And this particular one is a 2-piece medium action rod. And I've got it loaded with an 8-pound test fluorocarbon leader. And you can see I've got a little Rapala on there. And then the main line is 10-pound test titanium braid. But it has the diameter of like 3-pound monofilament, so you can cast it really far. Now, what makes this rod a little bit special is that it's got a split grip. And you can see that it has a little ring right there. So I've modified mine a little bit. So I've got this neoprene, so it's a little bit softer. And then I've put my connection on the actual loop that's at the end. So on the bait caster that I've got right here, I also have a little Rapala. And you can see the bait caster is a little bit heavier action. Again, it's a North Coast rod, 2-piece, which is nice. It's got the split grip, and then it's got the ring. The one thing you have to keep in mind when you're kayak fishing, especially if you're out in open water, if you drop anything, it's gone. So, over the side, I mean. So you got to be very careful that your paddle has a lanyard, and you can see right here on the paddle that I've got a lanyard, and it's longer. It's maybe about 4 feet long. So if I drop my paddle in the side, because eventually it may sink, even though they're made out of fiberglass and plastic, very intelligent to have a lanyard on there for your most important things. You don't want to be up the creek without a paddle, if you know what I mean. Here is a variety of spoons and spinners. Some of the most popular spoons are very small, and they're almost diamond shaped. So here's one here. You can see that these are stamped. This is the Lucky Strike Baitworks company that makes these. This is probably one of their most popular models, especially for trout, the one that's got this pink color, black and green. So the size is very important when you're fishing for trout, even 4 or 5 pounds. You don't want to use too large of a lure. So spoons that are about 1/4 to 3/8 ounce, like this one, and I've got a whole variety of them here. Here's a longer one that's got more of a minnow shape. It's just stuck right there. Okay, so I'll hold that one up. That's also made by Lucky Strike, and you can see that both these lures are in the 2 to 3 inch range. So they're ideal for casting and retrieving. You can also fish these at different depths, because you can fish them right to the bottom and vertical jig them when the fish are deep, or you can fish them right at the surface. And then the last type of lure that works really well when you're fishing like this for suspended trout are spinners. And I'm going to hold a couple up here. One that's got a little bit of a tail, like I'm holding up here. And then one is the original Vibrex, which I've got in this hand. That's the number 3 Vibrex. So these spinners are ideal because they create a lot of vibration and action where they're going through the water and flash from the blade. So one's got that little bit of a hackle on there to track the fish. This one doesn't. But these in these sizes work really well for trout. Whether I'm steelhead fishing on some of the migratory streams or I'm fishing lakes like this in the spring and the fall, they work extremely well. So if you have a good combination of small Rapalas, like the one I've got here, spinners, spoons, you're pretty well guaranteed to catch some fish, especially if they're feeding. You know, this is kind of neat. I just switched to a small spinner. It's called a bang tail, and I'll show it to you in a minute. And I'm casting out here, it's like anywhere from 30 to 50 feet deep. And I just have a smallmouth on. He whacked it. So the smallmouth are in here, as well as the trout. And this is amazing because the water temperature is like 40 degrees, 44 degrees. So as soon as this guy calms down, I'm just going to turn the kayak around. I'm going to try to bring him in closer. You know what? He hit pretty hard for this cold of water. Now he's not big. He's only about 1.5 pounds. See if he stays on there. Nice little bass. Now you can see that bang tail that I've got on there. It's a yellow color, and I put that spinner on because rainbows especially like yellow. So you can see it's hanging out, a very chunky fish, and I got a feeling that all of the fish in this system, and I think there's largemouth, smallmouth, rainbows, are gorging themselves. Because, you know, in probably about a month up here, we're going to start to get ice on the lakes because it's pretty cold when you get up here in the Haliburton area. So they're all taking advantage and feeding really heavily. Now you can see that that blade is silver, and the other thing is that it's got a hackle. See, there's a little bit of red and orange. sometimes I think that really helps, you know. It's kind of red like blood, so a lot of times when a fish is attracted to a spinner, it'll hit the hackle that's there. So I'm just going to pull that hook out. He's only got one in his mouth. Nice chunky smallmouth. They're gorgeous color here, very healthy. Now, you know, I don't have my hoodie up, but it's like +1 or +2 Celsius, so it's pretty cold here. Now, these guys have so much energy and the water's cold, you're going to see them take off. Okay, now if you look at this lure, the body is actual all weight, which is kind of nice. Okay, so this is heavy. This lure is probably about 3/8 ounces in weight, and it comes equipped with a swivel, because spinners are notorious for twisting your line because they spin around. And then I also have a snap and a swivel attached to it, so I want to make sure that there's no way my line is going to get twisted. Okay, so sometimes when the fish are suspended, spinners are ideal lures to use because you can control the depth that you fish it at. I can fish the spinner in 50 feet of water by letting it sink right to the bottom, or I can skim it just below the surface. So I think I'm going to go back up there, and I'm going to try casting right over the deep hole, which is about 50 feet, before I go closer to the shoreline. Hey, 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 that warms things up.